We're back with Doug and Judy Hall of the Emmanuel Gospel Center. And I'd like to continue our conversation. We had a brief conversation before beginning the interview. And one of the things that has impacted me about both of you is the generous attitude that you have assumed coming into the city. It's something that I think characterizes the Emmanuel Gospel Center. You've instilled your generous spirit into your organization as well. One of the things that I've observed over the years is your gift of hospitality. You have, number one, you have lived right in the neighborhood that you have ministered in for many, many years. An area that a lot of people probably would think twice about living in, and yet you graciously and very authentically decided, that's where we're going to be, and you served right out of that place. And also then, it's impacted me how many people have gone through your home over the years, and you guys have so generously opened the doors of your home. Has that been a problem for you, your family? I know you have children as well, and your own, and somehow you managed to stay together, minister together, exemplify a very genuine kind of relationship, which has always been a kind of an inspiration to me and a challenge, in my own marriage and my own ministry understanding. So tell me a little bit about that, because you guys have had all kinds of people run through. How has that affected your marriage, and how have you been able to live a natural life in the midst of that kind of that kind of ministry, an authentic one where you don't pretend? And
what happened was when we first came, we were living, the Gospel Center was a little storefront mission, and so there was an apartment upstairs. So we lived there, and we shortly invited another friend who ran a rescue mission down the street to live with us when his apartment got rained out. And anyway, and then we slowly invited other people to live with us. I guess it was just a pattern. Mm-hmm. We had an extra...
Like everything else you learned as you went, and the Lord
we
kind
had
of
an extra room, and so it just kind of happened. And then there were Gordon College students that wanted to learn about ministry, so they came, and some stayed over the weekend, or they'd stay for a summer, or it just grew from one thing to the next. And when we changed buildings, because that building was torn down, and the building that the center is in now was, we got that building. We lived in an apartment for a while, and then later we lived in a townhouse that the center owned. But there were always extra bedrooms in the townhouse, and so we always had people living with us. And our children are grown now, and they will both say that although it was difficult, they're glad that they had that opportunity, because it taught them to be adaptable and to learn to adapt to people of different races, different types.
And what do you think was the secret? Because in some cases that could have backfired, and you could have very dysfunctional kids saying, "Hey, mom and dad robbed us of our childhood by having all these people come in." What would you say?
We almost felt like that was happening.
Yeah. What would you say was the reason why it turned out
kept doing
so well?
Or why?
And why you think it actually wasn't enriching? Yeah. Why was it a blessing?
It was a blessing. It was a blessing for me, because tend to be kind of neurotic and have a low-lying sense of anxiety, and if I'm alone too long, I just get. So for me, having people around is healthy.
Yeah. Usually it's the wife who complains that you're having too many people over for dinner, and you haven't told me about it. You seem to have been part of that situation and enjoyed it, actually.
I liked having people around, and when it came to cooking, it doesn't really matter if you're cooking for 4 or cooking for 8. It's just a bigger pot.
You just put in a few more noodles into the soup. And
Anyway, we were energized, I think, by having people. And even with our kids, after they left the house, every year they'd say, "Well, who's living at the house this year? Do you have any interesting people living there?" So we did have some structures, because we have because we teach this basic urban ministry course for CUME. We always had seminary students that were taking that course. So usually we'd have a student live with us for the year, or we'd have people who were interning at this Gospel Center, learning, sort of stepping out in ministry. So their first year they'd live with us, and then they'd get their own place, or find other ways.
You learn to live your Christian life in the midst of a big complicated social system all the time. People are always observing you every hour of the day and seeing what's there and what's not.
That must put a lot of pressure on you.
Then,
being human. How do you guys fight with each other,
They see
for
all
example?
the warts and everything. My wife taught me how to argue in front of everybody, and she still does that. And and so
that's refreshing.
It's very. It creates a very real environment with people.
Any golden nuggets of wisdom for pastoral couples that you have gained over the years? Any thoughts on that? What is the secret of your success? How long have you guys been married for?
51 now.
51
It'll be
years.
51. We just celebrated our 50th.
And those 51 years, I mean, soon you're going to come to your 50 years of ministry, is that so?
Yeah,
pretty soon, yeah.
A couple of years.
Now, I have to say, in the last 10 years, we have lived alone. We bought a condo.
So you've healed of some of those wounds
And,
of the
well,
previous 40 years.
Some friends advised that they had, what do you call it, where you get rid of the big house, and simplified their life when they were 65, when they still had energy to do it. So we started at that time looking for a place, and God provided a condo just 3 blocks from the center in the same neighborhood. So we were able to stay in the neighborhood, and so we've had this place and been pretty much living alone for.
So no retirement to Florida or
No.
the Grand Canyon for you or anything like that. You guys will stay in the city.
We like being in the
But if
city.
you come to our house on any Monday night, you'll find 6 people at the table. There'll be all students from the class that we have. So we have 45 students in the class, and we have 6 of them over every night for dinner and in fellowship and so forth.
It's a great way of discipling and
yeah,
mentoring.
it's amazing. We've had African Americans who have lived all their life in Boston and had never been in a white home. Or somebody who is an upper class Haitian man who's lived in Boston for 6 years and never been in an American home. You know, the hospitality is terrible in this country. In some
think
ways.
it's a great gift, a very rare one, but very powerful.
We budget about $1,500 a year on just hospitality still, and it's we'll have a concert with my daughter in 2 weeks. We'll have 40 people in our home for the concert.
That's so refreshing. You know, I think one of the big problems these days with a lot of ministerial models is this idea of the minister as sort of aloof and the big star. And I'm sad to say that it even happens in many ethnic groups in my own Latin American world that I move in. This idea of the pastor as this superstar that is he needs to drive a Mercedes. I see friends, and people that I respect highly in other ways, but sometimes we feel compelled to get that Mercedes. Otherwise, we just don't rate anymore, even though we may have a small church. But and I understand some of the principles behind that of exemplifying prosperity and blessing and so on, and being inspiration to your people. But it seems so far removed from the kind of ministry that you guys really have incarnated, this incarnational ministry, this ministry done with the people, letting them see who you are, warts and all, and opening your life to them. And at the same time also sharing the blessing of God and the gifting of God in your life with them, opening your home, exposing your children to all this diversity of individuals. I mean, it's a beautiful way of doing ministry, and so much closer to what I think I see in the scriptures in Christ's own incarnational ministry. And I think we need to capture some of that as well in our own Pentecostal charismatic milieu, and recognize the biblical validity of that.
We really
ministry.
try to do almost everything in teams. We teach in teams, we do ministry in teams, and I almost never have to tell people to do a particular vision. What we do is we form a situation where people come together and they form the vision that they all own. And then everybody owns it, and then everybody does it. And nobody has to drive anybody to get it done. And so there's a huge amount of self-motivation that comes out of it. And you can be extraordinarily busy doing scores of different things, but when you work that way, you never tire yourself out.
Well, it's also risk-taking, I'm sure, because sometimes those visions may or may not pan out.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to also
trust
fail
the Spirit
and,
of God
and learn from that, and
yeah.
develop
But
as you go.
basically, we have found it's been enormous when you have shared vision and people own the vision. It's not your vision for them, it's their vision. It's all of our vision, and we're all making it happen. We just had a staff meeting today at the center, and we had 2 groups present their total vision for, what they want to do. And the presentations are prepared by the whole team of people. Once they get it out there, they all then say, this is what we are going to do. And they do it as a unity. The Spirit of God works through the corporate nature of the church, and so it's a beautiful way to minister. It relieves pressure from you. Normally, you can do so many things and not feel the pressure of it, because you're not the one doing it.
Yeah, well, I would say it's very satisfying for the practitioner, because you see your people growing, and very empowering for those who are receiving ministry and the teaching of it, because they discover the gifting of God. Well, we're drawing to a close here pretty soon. Let's take a break, and we'll come back, and then I want to talk a little bit about your book, The Cat and the Toaster, a very provoking title, and how you've been able to put into that book, I think, a lot of the fruit of your work in the past. So let's take a moment, and we'll be back shortly.